In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Raw material, the basic substances and elements used to build all that our minds can invent. Water, soil, rock, metal ore, trees, energy. These are all examples of what we commonly refer to as raw material, from which we build all things. But for God, raw material is God Himself. God created all things out of nothing, ex nihilo. This means that God created the cosmos without pre-existent matter. Rather, God creates ex deo, from out of Himself. God's raw materials are God's Spirit and God's Word. God's Spirit hovered over the newly created cosmos and is still at work today. God's Word is the image of the invisible God. By God's Word, all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. All things were created by Him and for Him. God's Word would become flesh as Jesus Christ at a point in history that was pre-appointed before the inception of creation. God's raw materials are God's Word and God's Spirit. Yet when it comes to me, I find myself depending on the raw materials of creation rather than the raw material of the Creator. How often do God's people find themselves telling God, if our church just had a bigger building, or a bigger budget, or a better sound system, or more people, man, if we had those things, then we could really serve you and change the world. But deep down, we know we're just distracting ourselves. What's most important is the Spirit and the Word working through us as parents and children, through us as friends and peers and colleagues, through us to strangers. This is what we find Elisha asking for in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9. He was thirsty for God's Spirit, the same Spirit that empowered Elijah and has guided God's people throughout the millennia and beyond today. So may you build your life on God's raw materials, and may God bless each of us with a double portion of His Spirit.